What up, nerds? I'm Bryson. You can call me Bammed. And this is CTF and Cigars by Bam CTF, where I light up a cigar and talk about CTFs, hacking, and other security related things. So I've been doing a series the past few episodes, and I'm trying to get caught up because I got a little behind, but I'm going through TryHackMe's Advent of Cyber 2. Today we're going through days 9 through 12. So today is the 19th, so I'm still about a week behind. Hopefully I can get caught up next week, but that's the plan. But before we get started, as we always start CTF and Cigars, we can't forget the cigar. So this week I am smoking it's a Diesel Unlimited Maduro. So again, the Maduro is the darker wrapper. It's usually a little bit sweeter, sweeter flavor with it, more coffee, earthy kind of tones with the Maduro wrapper. In this particular one, this Diesel, it's got a San Andres binder and a bold mix of Honduran and Nicaraguan long fillers with the broadleaf Maduro wrapper. So that's this darker wrapper you can see around here. Excuse me. So this Diesel, it's got a faint sort of musty hay aroma. Smells pretty good. Bit of sweetness to it. And when we actually get into this, so the first third of it, we're going to look for some tobacco and sort of a deep, earthy combo flavor with a bit of pepper and a bit of a bite that sort of builds as you go. So you get to that second third, and there's even more pepper and earth. Some of the reviews, I saw somebody call it a big pepper and earth bomb. It's got a pretty good bite to it. And then that last third, you get some warm nuttiness on the draw, and the strength builds as you go. So let's go ahead and get this started. So because this is a pretty bold cigar, I'm going to go ahead and use a straight cut. I've been using the V cut lately, but the V cut also kind of concentrates that flavor and it builds it up. But this one's already pretty bold, so I'm just going to use that straight cut. Let's get this thing lit. And from what I can tell, I don't think I've smoked one of these yet. I got a AJ Fernandez sampler pack, and this was one of the ones in it. Should be a lot of smoke. Should be a pretty good smoke. Just yeah, some pretty bold, earthy flavors to it. All right, let's get that foot nice and toasted. Real smooth draw. Good amount of smoke. Yeah, definitely get some of that earthiness out of it. Little sweet, little pepper, but from what I can tell, this is going to just build as we go. More earthiness, more pepperness as we go through this. So the Diesel Unlimited Maduro. This is a Toro, so it's 5.5 inches long and a 54 gauge. All right, and that's what I'll be smoking today. So before I jump into the advent of cyber, I'm gonna get serious here for a minute. Let me hold on. Let me find the right window. There we go. All right. So this is Addie. Adeline, we call her Addie. She is my ex-wife's daughter, so she's my kid's little sister. Just so you know that we are sort of related. I still get along well with my ex-wife. We spend holidays together and all of that. So Addie's more kind of like a niece to me. Earlier this year, she was diagnosed with epilepsy. She had a couple of grand mal seizures or tonic-clonic seizures. Had to, get rushed to the hospital a couple times. They did some MRIs, and while they were doing the MRIs for the epilepsy, they found a tumor in her head. So starting in September, she's been going through chemotherapy. So once a month, she goes and spends a week in the hospital for chemo. So yeah, there's a GoFundMe here. I think I've got the link on the page on my, yeah, there's a link there, the GoFund.me, if you guys want to help my ex-wife and her husband out a bit with some of the medical bills. Like I said, there's been a couple of ambulance rides when she had some seizures. There's been an MRI scan, a PET scan, and then monthly stays in the hospital for chemotherapy. And actually, she was supposed to go this week, but her numbers were low, so she's actually going next week. So she's going to be in the hospital doing chemo on Christmas. Anyway, if anybody feels generous, there is the link. I'll leave it up for you guys to see that. And I'm hoping to put together a fundraiser here I'm thinking either late January or early February. So I'll talk about that as that gets closer as well. So that's there. And let's move on to the hacks then. All right. So, advent of cyber. This is the advent of cyber 2 from TryHackMe. So that's tryhackme.com. This is a great site. A lot of great practice for all the things that we talk about here at CTF and Cigars. I've been going through the past few, or I've been trying to get caught up. I started a little bit late just because, you know, I do have a day job and a life outside of this stream, and just things got busy and I got behind. So I'm getting caught up. Today we're doing days 9 through 12. Yesterday I did days 5 through 8. So this whole thing started off with, you know, some web exploitation, and now we're doing some networking. And then later, there's some specials by John Hammond. We've got some scripting and some reverse engineering coming up as well. So a lot of great challenges. And one of the things I love about this TryHackMe, especially this challenge in particular, but just TryHackMe in general, there's a lot of great, not just challenges, but tutorials as well. So every one of these challenges, if you go through them, they describe the technology involved. So like, you know, when they talk about web exploitation, they start off just talking about what is the web, what is HTTP, and that sort of thing. So there's some good stuff here. There's been some stuff on SQL injection, cross-site scripting, you know, using Burp and Zap and some other tools. And day 9 is all about FTP. So we talk about FTP here. What is FTP? How does it work? How do you do it? Lots of discussion about that. They talk about some anonymous logins. They talk about replacing some scripts here. There's a reverse shell that we can do. All right, so there's a great discussion here. I definitely recommend you reading all of it, but we are just focusing on the hacks. So let's get to the hacks. So the first question, we've got a FTP server has data accessible by the anonymous user. We want to know what directory that is. So we need to FTP into our host. So I've already launched the attack box. I've already deployed the server for this challenge. Let's FTP to it now. So we can just use the FTP command along with our IP address to FTP. And in this case, the question was about using an anonymous login. Let's go back down to the questions here. So we're going to just log in with the user anonymous, and we're in. So let's just see what folders we can see. So the ls command, just like in a bash or a Linux terminal, lets you show the directories, and it's pretty obvious which ones we can see, because these top 3, if you notice, the size of the directories is 0 bytes. So that could be because they're empty, but in this case it's because we just don't have permission. So if I try going to backups, there's nothing there. But if I go to public, we can see there's actually files. So the first question was what directory has data accessible by the anonymous user, and that is the public directory. And the next question is what script gets executed within this directory. So this goes back to the discussion that they had earlier on this page about a script on an FTP site. So Elf McEager wrote a backup script. So that is this backup.sh. And then we want to know what movie did Santa have on his Christmas shopping list. We've got a shopping list here, so let's just get that. In fact, while we're at it, let's get both of these files. So we can just get, spell it right, backup.sh. We've downloaded it. Now we can get shoppinglist.txt, and we've got that. All right, I want to leave this connection open here, but let's open another terminal and take a look at those files. So the question was about Santa's, what movie does Santa have on his shopping list? And there it is. It's the Polar Express movie. So the answer is actually just the Polar Express. So now we've got that. We're going back to the malicious, to the backup script. So we want to re-upload the script to contain malicious data, just like we did in section 9.6. And then we want to output /root/flag.txt. So the answers are all given for you. If you go up here to this 9.6 section where it talks about doing exactly what we're going to do here. So we've got an exploit. All right, so there's a file. It's an SH, or it's a bash file. It's a script that runs, and we have read access. Let's assume for now that we have write access. We're going to replace that bash script and hope somebody runs it. So let's modify it. All right, so we've got backup.sh, and this is what they're recommending that we do. So this is going to this is going to launch a reverse shell that's going to connect back to my attack box and give me shell access. So let's see if that works. Let's just put that in there. I need the IP address of my attack box, which is right up here. So we're going to replace this where it says your TryHackMe IP. We're going to replace it with our actual IP for our attack box. Make sure you use the IP of your attack box. All right, so I've got that in my clipboard, and now let's just add it to our bash script. All right, so I'm not removing anything that Elf McEager already had, just so you know, if he does have anything that checks to make sure the backups run, maybe he won't notice that the script's been modified. All right, save that file, and now let's re-upload it, or let's upload the modified file. So let's just put backup.sh transfer complete. All right, and I should have already launched my shell, but give me a second. I didn't launch my listener. So again, that is here. It shows you exactly what to do. So from another terminal, we will just launch our listening shell. And looks like it was already ready and waiting for us. So yeah, we now have a shell on the box. So it's the question is, let's look at the outputs of root flag.txt. And there it is. That works. Looks like I'm root. So yeah, so that was it for day 9. Day 9 was pretty simple. So let's close that out. Let's close out these shells we don't need anymore, and let's move on to day 10. Let's start that attack, or that the target up. Give that a minute to load, and let's see what is day 10 all about. All right, so the best festival company. That's what this whole story's been about, which is basically Santa's workshop. Looks like they have upscaled their infrastructure, including a VPN. But suddenly a cold shiver runs down your spine, interrupting your monologue. You suddenly recall that Elf McSkitty had set up a Samba file server before the attack occurred. Could this have been hacked too? What about our data? Oh no. All right, so this is all about Samba. So there's a discussion here on Samba, what it is. So this is the Linux implementation of SMB, your server message block, which is the it's natively supported by Windows. So this would be the network file system for Windows, essentially. They do mention NFS, which is actually the network file system. Discuss how that's, SMB is natively supported by Windows. NFS is natively supported by Linux. And they give a more detailed description on Samba shares. Looks like we have a script called Enum4Linux.pl. That's going to list all the options for the shares in question. Talk about how to run that. There's a couple flags. There's a -8-S to list shares and a -U to list users. And let's see, what is our questions? All right, so we're going to use this Enum4Linux and figure out how many Samba shares there are on our target box. All right, so we're going to use that Enum4Linux, and let me remember where that's at. There's a path in here somewhere. There it is. Okay, so that's where this Enum4Linux script's at. Okay, so we can see it right there. This Enum4Linux Perl script. Let's go ahead and run that. We want to know how many users are on the server. And that was 10.10.81.66 is my target for this one. We used I used the wrong flag. S gives us shares, U gives us users. All right, we'll give this a minute to run. I guess we're going to answer the second question first. So this is going through and just running a bunch of commands and trying to enumerate what shares are on here. I wonder what that script looks like. So yeah, it is a Perl script. So it's looking for some known user strings. It's using NMB lookup. Well, we don't want to spend this whole episode trying to break apart Perl. That'll take forever. All right. So let's see. Did we get anything back? Make sure I ran this right. All right, let's try this again with the -U and get just the users. There we go. So we can see we have 3 users listed. There's Elf McSkitty, Elf McEager, and Elf McElferson. So that was the answer to question 1, how many users are enumerated. And now we're going to look at the shares. I had the flags in the wrong order before, but there we go. So now we have these 4 shares. So there's this TBFC-HR, TBFC-IT, TBFC-Santa, and then just the machine share that is default on all Windows systems. All right, now use SMB client to try to log into the shares of the Samba server. What doesn't require a password? So we can already kind of tell from the results here. So these first 2 have a denied message when it was trying to enumerate them, but this one here, this TBFC-Santa, says mapping okay, so we're actually able to access that. So now let's go ahead and use SMB client to try to log in. If you haven't used SMB client, there is a, yeah, again, they tell you everything you need to know up here. So this is the command that we want to run. So SMB client, 2 slashes, the IP, which was, what was that IP? There we go. All right, so we've got our IP and then the name of the share. So that's TBFC-Santa. All right, and it looks like it logged in. It asked for a password, but I left the password blank, and I still was able to get in. So this is just an open share. And then what directory did Elf McSkitty leave for Santa? We've got this Jingle Tunes directory. So we should be able to, let's just get, I think we can cat. Can we cat this file? We can't cat it. Okay, let's get it though. All right, so there's the note from McSkitty to Santa. Decided to leave all your favorite jingles in this share, and this is, of course, is the Jingle Tunes directory that we're talking about here. So that's the answer to question 4 is Jingle Tunes. So there's some basics of SMB, connecting to SMB, enumerating data inside SMB. All right, so that was also a pretty straightforward, pretty simple challenge, really just educational, teaching you about SMB and all that. So let's move on to day 11. We are breezing through these today. All right, so we've got the Rogue Gnome. All right, so this is it, the moment that Elf McEager has been waiting for. It's the final exam of the Nmap course that he enlisted on during the day 8 What's Under the Christmas Tree. So I did that one yesterday, just talking about some basics of Nmap. Looks like all the hard work of hitting the books has paid off. Success, Elf McEager screams. The exploit works, yippee. Elf McEager has successfully managed to create a reverse shell from the target back to his computer. Little did he know, the real exam begins now. The last stage of the exam requires Elf McEager to escalate his privileges. He spent so much time studying Nmap cheat sheets that he's now drawing a blank. Can you help him? Help him be the good guy. Sometimes you got to be the bad guy first. All right, so we deployed our box, and we're talking about privilege escalation. So if you've done some CTFs, you've had to do a lot of this. Most network challenges in a CTF involve getting initial access some way, and then privilege escalating, sometimes multiple times for various users, but usually the goal is to get root or admin, depending on what the target box is. So they talk about privilege escalation. What is it? How do you do it? There's vertical escalation. There's horizontal privilege escalation. So horizontal privilege escalation. So I log in as Elf McEager, but Elf McSkitty has more access than Elf McEager, so I can do a horizontal escalation to escalate as a different user on the same system, one with more privileges, but still not a root level, or maybe not more, but at least different privileges. And then, of course, vertical privilege escalation, that's where you're moving up, such as getting that administrator or that root access. All right, so there's more discussion about that. A little bit more about Nmap, about finding privilege escalations, and then I think they talk about GTFO bins, so we'll pull that up in a minute. We'll look at that. It's a great resource for making use of different privilege escalations for certain common scenarios or certain binaries. We're talking about SUID here. So SUID, that is one of the permissions on a Linux file. So you've got read, write, and execute for the owner, the group owner, and then everybody else. But then there's also some SUID, GUID, and the sticky bit. So SUID it makes the binary run as the owner. So if it's owned by root and SUID is set, that binary file will actually run as the user root with root level permissions. GUID does the same thing, but with group level permissions. Talks about sudoers file and all right, abusing SUID. How do you find it? More about GTFO bins. Here we go. Enumeration script. So they've got enumeration script available for download here. Let's go ahead and download that. So I have that on my attack box. Maybe if I spelt wget correctly, it'll actually download it. There we go. All right, so we've got our enumeration script here. And I think we're ready to jump into the attack. Oh, there's an interesting discussion here on covering your tracks as well. You know, if you were doing this actually as a pen test as opposed to a CTF. One of the things I've noticed about CTFs is that people are usually noisy as fuck in an actual pen test environment. You probably don't want to be quite so noisy. The CTFers can be very obvious about what they're doing. Okay, so getting to the challenge of the day. Ensure you've deployed the instance, which we have. Answer questions 1 and 2 before proceeding. You've already been provided with credentials to use. I'll have to go back up and find out where those are. And yeah, so the goal is escalate privileges. So what type of privilege escalation involves using a user account to execute commands as an administrator, and that is a vertical. So that was back up here. If you read through the documentation, the first thing they talked about was vertical versus horizontal escalation. So we're escalating up. That's going to be a vertical privilege escalation. What is the name of the file that contains a list of users who are part of the sudo group? And that is the sudoers file. All right, so we're going to use SSH to log into the vulnerable machine. And then they've given us a password, so let's do that first. All right, yes. And the password is AOC 2020. That would be the advent of cyber 2020. All right, so we are in. We've got SSH access. Let's see. Who am I? I am CMnetic. Okay, enumerate the machine for executables that have had the SUID permission set. Look at the output and use mixture of GTFO bins and your researching skills to learn how to exploit this binary. You might find uploading some of the enumeration scripts that were used during today's task to be useful. All right, so let's try downloading the enumeration script directly to our target box. And this is going to fail. So there's something on the system that is blocking us, so we can't download this file. But that's not a concern because we already have SSH access, so we can just SCP. So SCP is just CP or copy over SSH. So let's see, we've got, what was it? Yeah, linenum.sh. So just like in CP, SCP, you're copying from source to destination. So the source goes first. And then our destination, since it is remote, we need to actually include the username at the host, and then a colon, and then your path. And I'll just use a tilde slash. So tilde is a shortcut for the home directory. So I was logged into this user's home directory. This will just copy that file over to that user's home directory. Type in my password and the file gets copied. So now we can see, get my fingers in the right place. Yeah, there it is. So let's run this and let's see what we get. So this will take a minute. It's going through, it's checking a bunch of common privilege escalation paths that you can take, looking at sudoers, looking for that set UID. Those are the main things that you're going to be looking for. There's some other stuff. It highlights some interesting files, possible configs, looks for, possible permissions issues, like, if there was a password.back or more importantly a shadow.back. Now we can see here the permissions for this are just read write by the user or the owner, which is root. So we won't be able to access this, but occasionally you will see a backup file like this, where the permissions aren't quite so stringent, and you can access those, maybe get the hashed password and then decode that hash. So that's something else to look out for. But this example is all about SUID. So let's look up here. All right, so it highlights interesting things. So possibly interesting SUID file. We've got bin bash. All right, so let's see, what can we do with bin bash? It's got set UID or SUID set. So we can go to GTFO bins, and it's just broken down here by the binary. So these are binaries that you can use for hacks for privilege escalation. So we've got bash. We know it's got SUID set. And here we go. So it tells us that if the binary has SUID bit set, it does not drop the elevated privileges and may be abused to access the file system, escalate, or maintain privilege accessed as a SUID backdoor. And essentially it boils down to bash-p. So let's try that. So just real quick, let's double check. I'm currently CMnatic. Let's see what happens when I run bash-p. Now I am root. So all right, so we uploaded the script. That's done. We've got a root shell. Now let's find the flag.txt. And there it is. So privilege escalation 101. That Enumeration script is a good one for finding some possible paths for privilege escalation. I've seen some other people use that same script. So that link is here on this page under the day 11 challenge, as well as GTFO bins. Both of those are great resources. I recommend that you check them out and put them in your arsenal for future CTFs. All right, that does it for day 11. So we are 35 minutes in, and we've already gone through 3 days. That's fantastic. We're going through these quick. I actually went through these last night, so I would avoid some of the typos and the pitfalls from last time, because I think the last ones, it had been a week or so before I had done them. All right, so let's see. We're talking here. What are we doing? Day 12. Ready, set, elf prelude. Christmas is fast approaching, yet all remain silent at the best festival company. What gives? The cheeks of those elves slacking at the festive period? Santa has no time for slackers in his workshop. After all, the sleigh won't fill itself, nor will the good and naughty list be sorted. Santa has tasked you, Alf McEager, with whacking those elves back in line. All right, so we need to start our attack box. We need to deploy. We've done both of those. Today's objectives. So we're going to be applying some of the skills and techniques we previously explored in the Advent of Cyber. We're going to do some enumeration, get some hands-on discovering, exploiting, and interesting functionality of web servers. All right, so we're talking a little bit here now about discovering vulnerabilities based on software versions. So there's a little bit of a discussion about, finding the software version. For example, on a not found page, you can figure out on a Ubuntu server, you've got Apache 2.4.41. And you can use that knowledge to then search excuse me, sorry about that, to search some different resources such as Rapid7, Attacker KB, MITRE, or Exploit DB to look for vulnerabilities. So essentially find the server software version and then look for an exploit and then see if we can exploit it. In this case, we're specifically talking about CGI. So web servers don't just display websites. They're capable of interacting with the operating system as well. And that's where the Common Gateway Interface, or CGI, comes into play. So this lets you use common technologies and programs such as Python, C++, Java, etc. Within your browser as if you were executing on the command line. Now, of course, that opens up a number of options as far as vulnerabilities and ways to exploit. Poorly written CGI scripts, things that don't sanitize input, stuff like that. All right, so there's more of a discussion on CGI. They talk a little bit about shell shock and then a little bit about, I think, Meterpreter. All right, so we've got our attack version. We want to know what the version number of the web server is. So let's find our attack box. There we go. There's our IP. Let's just pull this up in a web browser. And let's see what we have here. So we've got 10.10.167.103. All right, so it doesn't look like we have a web page that's actually pulling up here. Let's do a quick Nmap and let's see where our web server might be. And, you know, we're looking for server version, so let's just add the dash lowercase s capital V. I am mistyping things today. All right, Nmap. So this will scan for open ports, try to get service versions for us. Give that a second to run. This cigar is much more mild, actually, than I was expecting. Definitely the leatheriness and earthiness, but I'm not getting a lot of pepper. I was expecting more pepper out of it. So there's a little bit there, a little hint of it on the back end. All right, Nmap has run. Let's see, what do we got? All right, so port 80 is not open, but 8080 is open. It's like we've got Apache JServe running on 809. Looks like this is a Microsoft, it's a Windows server. All right, so let's see what's at port 8080. There we go. So it looks like we're doing a Tomcat 9.0.17. So I'm just going to search for this. So there are some resources that were provided up above for finding vulnerabilities, but I'm just going to use Google, search for that version and CVE. Let's see what we get at from CVE details. All right, so it looks like there is a code execution. That's probably what we want for our exploit. Let's check this out. And to make this easier, like the next question is what CVE can be used. By the way, the first one, the version number, that of course was provided right here, big and obvious. What CVE can be used to create a Meterpreter entry on the machine. The format is CVE dash, etc. So this is the one that I found, and that is the correct answer. So this talks about a CVE for the CGI bin on Apache Tomcat 9.0.17. All right, so we are going to then try to connect to this server using Meterpreter and using this exploit. So let's launch MSF console. So if you have not used Metasploit, it is time to start learning how to use Metasploit. I remember when it came out, and before Metasploit, you had to do all this stuff by hand. I mean, there were, you know, other tools and stuff out there, but they were more. A lot of tools were more focused on specific vulnerabilities. Metasploit is one of the um, early applications out there that started collecting various exploits and built a whole framework around exploiting. Definitely a great tool that you should learn how to use. Okay, so we are going to search. We've got CVE 2019-0232, and that has found our exploit for us, or the exploit script that we want to use, just based on that CVE. So we are going to tell Metasploit, the MSF console, to use that exploit. And all of this, again, is back here in the instructions. There's an explanation of Metasploit and getting Meterpreter to load up here. Yeah, so the next thing we want to do is check out our options. So Metasploit is ready to run, but it doesn't know what to run on yet. So let's just look at our options, just with the options command, all lowercase. So these are the options that we need to fill in order for the exploit to work. So first of all, our host, those are the remote, that would be the remote host. So that is our target. We've got a target port. In this case, we're not using SSL, so we can ignore those. The target URI, and then if we are using a virtual host, the virtual host name as well. All right, then we need the local settings. So we've got our local IP, which that should already be correct. It's already found that for us, so there's nothing to do there. But we do need to set the remote options. So let's set our host equals, where was that IP? Here we go. 10.10.167.103. Do I not need to do equals? Nope. There we go. Okay, so now if we look at our options, we can see that our host is now set. Now, the other thing we need to do is we need to find the target URI. So this is a CGI bin attack, and I believe they give us, let's see. Somewhere in here, they give us the actual script that we are targeting. Let me find that. All right, I thought it was right here. Challenge escalation. All right, let's just scroll through this, and we will find the actual script that Elf McEager is using. Yeah, the first time I did this, I also missed. There it is. Challenge time. It's elfwhacker.bat. All right, so we know it's CGI bin. And then let's see if this works. Elfwhacker.bat. There we go. All right, so the number of elves whacked that set back to work, 28,633. Looks like Elf McEager has been busy. All right, but this is our target URI. So this CGI bin /elfwhacker.bat. Let's copy that. And then we will set target URI to be this. All right, let's double check our options. So we've got local host, we've got our local port specified, we've got the remote host, remote URI, the port's accurate. Yep, all that looks good. So now let's just run exploit. So this is going to do all the work for us. We've given it the options. It'll do everything else for us. All right, it has exploited the server, and we now have a meterpreter shell. So we've completed this one, and now what are the contents of flag1.txt? Let's see, I think we just run the shell command, and now we have a shell. Now this is Windows, so we can't use Linux commands here unless we launch PowerShell. But we can see in the directory where we started, there is this flag1.txt. Now let's just check real quick to see if we can load this directly from the web server, because it's in the same directory. Nope, we get a 500 error, so that won't work. So let's see what's in this. We can use the type command in Windows to see the contents of a file. Flag1.txt, and there it is. THM whacking all the L's. So that is the answer to that one. We can then do some privilege escalation and some other stuff. Let's see. We can run help on Meterpreter. You can see what other things we can do. So let's see if we can just get system. All right, looks like we did. We now have system level access. Wonder if we can dump hashes. Let's get some password hashes. Let's see. All right. Well, I don't know. I'm doing something wrong, but there's other commands here. RTFM, that would be the answer to that. Yeah, there's other things you can do. You can play an audio file if you want. You can, see if there's a webcam, get screenshots. All of these commands here are part of Meterpreter. So this is, rather than just a shell, the Meterpreter actually is its own shell with its own built-in commands, and just part of the Metasploit framework. So that's all right there for you to play with and to learn. I think there is, let's see. Yeah, there is a Metasploit room on TryHackMe. Definitely recommend you check that out. Explore the Metasploit framework in more depth. There is so much you can do with that framework. It is definitely a tool that is worth learning and figuring out. So I think that that does it. We flew right through those without too many hiccups. Got through day 12. So I'm going to come back in a few days, probably on Monday, and try to do days 13 through 16. And then I'm going to try to get caught up before Christmas. So I'm going to do probably 2 or 3 episodes next week to try to get caught up on the advent of cyber and finish this off before the actual event finishes. I don't know if they're going to leave these challenges up after Christmas. Hopefully they do. These are some great challenges. These are some great learning opportunities. Definitely recommend everybody check those out. All right, I think that that does it for today. So thank you everybody for watching. Just a reminder, there is a CTF coming up on January the 14th. I've got a planning meeting next week. Want to get the registration site up and running hopefully next week. So stay tuned for that info. Also stay tuned to bamctf.com. Once I get that registration link up, it will be there. Or follow me on Twitter at bamctf. That's BAMCTF. You can see the logo right there on the bottom left of the screen. bamctf.com or at bamctf on Twitter, and updates as far as upcoming CTF will be there. This should be fun. So the upcoming CTF is going to be video game based. So a lot of the challenges will be centered around different video games, and planning on live streaming through the entire event. So this is going to be, we'll start in the morning and end in the late afternoon. So something like 9 to 5. Going to be live streaming through the whole thing. This is sponsored by Huntress Labs, and the Huntress team will be joining me, and I'm hoping to get some of my coworkers from Perch and maybe some friends to join as well. We're going to be playing some video games, some of the games that will be involved in the challenge itself. We'll be talking about hacking and CTFs. Hopefully we will get John Hammond to join us a bit for some games as well and talk about CTFs, because he does work at Huntress. and they are sponsoring this, so we'll get him on here. If you guys aren't familiar with John Hammond, I suggest you look him up. He's got a bunch of great tutorials and walkthroughs, and he's very active in the CTF scene, so check him out. And I think that will do it for this week, or for today. I'll be back in another few days to continue this advent of cyber. I don't think I'll be doing anything next Saturday just because of the holidays, and I'm already planning on doing some stuff earlier in the week. So follow my Twitter, pay attention to Twitch to see when my next stream will be, and I will see you then. So next time you're in a CTF and you get stuck, don't forget to always try harder, don't panic, and always RTFM. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. It's the madman, the madman's fight.